Good evening, I'm John Fugelsang. This is Viewpoint. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Just when you might have thought the Benghazi issue was sputtering out, it looks like Benghazi may be with us for many months to come. 4 Americans, including Ambassador Christopher Stevens, died when the American diplomatic facility at Benghazi, Libya, was attacked on 9/11/2012. An accountability review board headed by former Joint Chiefs Chair Admiral Mike Mullen and former Ambassador Thomas Pickering found serious mistakes had been made in security arrangements and reported those mistakes to the State Department and Congress. We'll have more on that from Ambassador Pickering himself in just a moment. But in Congress, there is fury over what ABC News reported as 12 revisions of government emails that followed this attack. The emails chart an interagency process that saw references to an al-Qaeda-related group and attack warnings removed from Benghazi talking points UN Ambassador Susan Rice was given days after the deaths. Republicans say it's a scandal. President Obama did not agree when he addressed the issue today.
The whole issue of this of talking points, frankly, throughout this process has been a sideshow. The emails that you allude to were provided by us to congressional committees. They reviewed them several months ago, concluded that, in fact, there was nothing afoul in terms of the process that we had used. And suddenly, 3 days ago, this gets spun up as if there's something new to the story. There's no there.
But on Sunday, California Congressman Darrell Issa, who chairs the House Oversight Committee, and the process had forced the CIA to back off its claims.
If you keep pushing back, you get a first report from the CIA, that's their report. Then you push back, you get a little different. You push back, you get a little different. That's manipulating the CIA to get the truth you want.
Because the CIA is so easy to push around. On Friday, Presidential Press Secretary Jay Carney insisted the White House role had been small.
And the only edit made by the White House or the State Department to those talking points generated by the CIA was a change from referring to the facility that was attacked in Benghazi from consulate, because it was not a consulate, to diplomatic post.
But Arizona Senator John McCain wouldn't buy it.
For the president's spokesman to say that, well, there was only words or technical changes made in those emails is a flat-out untruth. I'd call it a cover-up. I would call it a cover-up in the extent that there was willful removal of information which was obvious.
For more, I'm very honored to welcome back to Viewpoint Thomas Pickering, who served as America's ambassador to the United Nations, India, Israel, Jordan, El Salvador, and Nigeria before leading the State Department-sponsored panel that investigated the Benghazi attack. Ambassador, what a pleasure as always to have you on the show.
Thank you, John. It is nice to be back with you.
Well, thank you. And we certainly enjoyed watching you with Chairman Issa yesterday, of course, on Meet the Press, where he claimed you'd refused to appear in front of his committee. You corrected him on air, letting us know that the Republican majority said you weren't welcome at last week's hearing. Sir, have you been in contact with the Chairman's Oversight and Reform Committee since yesterday? Have you been asked yet to give a deposition or take part in a future hearing?
Yes, I've received a letter today, which I'm looking at in some detail. I think Admiral Mullen also received a letter. Admiral Mullen and I believe that we should testify as soon as change, and that it should be in public testimony, so that's what it is we have to say. And we're looking at that. And we've asked the State Department on our behalf, since our report has been given to the Secretary of State already, to go and help to arrange those meetings.
Well, did anything in last week's Oversight Reform Committee hearing, sir, surprise you in any way or cause you to reconsider any of your Accountability Review Board's findings?
Nothing caused me to reconsider my Accountability Review Board findings. I listened with great intent to the various testimonies that were given. I was a little bit surprised by the degree of politicization of the whole outfit, but I think everybody else has expressed that, including Senator Feinstein on Sunday.
Indeed they have and will continue to. But your report dealt with 5 questions regarding the Benghazi attack, sir, all of them involving security. Now, based on your findings, were the security issues at the Benghazi facility a failure of leadership on the part of the State Department or the congressional funding process or both of the above?
Well, I think that in some ways both of the above. We pinpointed where we thought the leadership failings were in the State Department at the Assistant Secretary level and below, fairly high up in the department. We also noted that programs that the Congress had undertaken to fund back in 1998 to deal with the Nairobi and Dar es Salaam bombings were not fully funded over the 10-year period in which it was the intention to do so, and we recommended that they be fully funded, and that we recommended some other funding and supported other funding that the State Department wanted to move on immediately.
Well, of course, Chairman Issa said Sunday he found the ARB's report inadequate because it didn't find anybody at a high level of State Department or anyone else to have failed. You just pointed out that you did find a failure at the Assistant Secretary level. I take it, based on your report and your comments Sunday, you don't agree with the Congressman.
No, I don't on that. I think that everybody may have their own definition of high level. His seemed to be the Secretary of State. Explained how we had met with the Secretary of State, why we had not, quote, investigated her, because in fact we had clearly and I think affirmatively felt that the decision-making was at a level below hers, and it was reviewed at a level below hers.
Do you believe, sir, the State Department has the ability to push the CIA around and make it bend to its will on reports like this?
No, I don't think so, and I think that the characterization of then CIA Director General David Petraeus, I thought, was particularly uncalled for in that discussion, but that's my personal opinion. I have had the honor and pleasure of knowing General Petraeus and understanding his point of view at a number of occasions, and feel he's affirmative, strong, and committed. And I don't think he would permit the agency to be pushed around. I think he was the head of CIA at the time that these allegations were made. My own sense is that those particular documents were provided, as the President said, and you just quoted him, and gave the Congress a real opportunity to look at this. But it's hard to believe that this was a cover-up if indeed the White House provided them. But this was not part of our report, and I hasten to add that I'm not the expert on this. I'm commenting as a citizen.
Well, indeed you are, and we are very interested in your personal opinions on these. I understand your experience as a diplomat serves you well in this regard. But did Senator Kelly Ayotte have a point on Sunday when she said the ARB wasn't a substitute for congressional oversight?
Well, the ARB was appointed through an act of Congress that provided the authority for this and set out the 5 questions you referred to. Some of those questions, I think, contain findings and recommendations which ought to be of help to the Congress in oversight, if oversight is clearly defined as seeking information for the purposes of improving legislation or preparing new legislation. And certainly we were aware of that, and we supported it. Senator Ayotte has her own views on this, and obviously the Congress on these questions subject to the Constitution is master of their own fate, and I wouldn't second-guess them, but I think we did provide information that we thought could be helpful to the Congress.
Sir, we're just about out of time. Are you surprised this attack has become such a political issue and is being used as such a weapon against another party? And should it be?
No, because I read all of the press reporting up until the time we completed our report. It was thousands of pages, I hate to tell you, and tried to be sure that in our report we investigated every lead, every question that came up in the press. Some of it was startling, close to Pulitzer Prize fiction in its inventiveness. And we found indeed that some of it did point in the right directions and helped us. But we wanted to be sure our report was thorough enough to say that we had looked at all of that and put aside the things that didn't hold up and tried to answer the things that did. And it was very clear that the political campaign then going on seemed to play a major role in what I would call the production of inventive ideas about the sins of the other side, if I could phrase it that way.
It's a very diplomatic way to phrase it. I would have a shorter lexicon. Former U.S. Ambassador Thomas Pickering, many thanks, sir, once again for sharing some of your time this evening.
Thanks, John, again for the opportunity to join you.
Always a pleasure.